Hey, good evening. Foggy here from the Wanderings crew. And I'm coming to you tonight to talk about something other than music. And the reason I wanted to do this, I thought about doing it a while back, but I kind of held off for whatever reason. And I've seen a lot of videos out there about the Wheel of Time and should you read it. Apparently, in the middle of the series, there's the slog, as it's called, which is a slow period for the books. And so I watched the show. I enjoyed the show, realized it's very different from the books, according to a lot of people. Now, having read some, I totally get that. The show is good. It is not the books. And I have a good friend who's read every one of the Wheel of Time books, and they loved it. And they suggested that I definitely jump in, stick to it, and give it a go. So that's what I did. I went ahead and bought this set right here, which is the first four. And then it's the last one that, or one of the ones that came out later. I forget, after book 9 or something, but it's a prequel of sorts, prologue, that comes before Eye of the World. And so I'm avoiding that one because apparently there are some spoilers there for the rest of the series. And so far I've read Eye of the World and The Great Hunt, the first two books. And so I just wanted to share a couple of quick thoughts about why you should read The Wheel of Time. And I can say nothing about the slog, but what I can say is when you read books, it's not ultimately to know the whole story or to know, what happens in the end. I mean, you can go to Wikipedia and find that out. It's about the experience of reading the book and the enjoyment you get from the reading. And so what I can say with 100% certainty is books 1 and 2 are brilliant. They are amazing books. I loved every minute of it. It's an amazing story. There's nothing in here that I would say, man, that stands out. That's just a little weird or that's not good. I think it's just a well-written story, and it is creative. It's clever. It's original. And so here's why I think you should read it. Number one, the reading experience is amazing. What Robert Jordan does is builds a world that is rich. It's unique. It's obviously in the fantasy genre, but he has created some things that are different, that kind of go outside of the norm. The beginning of Wheel of Eye of the World is very similar to Lord of the Rings, and you'll hear that from people who don't like this series, that it's aping that. It's and he has admitted that the first part is an homage to Lord of the Rings, and so the very first part of this feels very Lord of the Rings-ish, and it is, but it quickly departs and turns into something very different. And that is why I think people really like it. The world building, the lore, the prophecy, the Carathian cycle of the dragon is cool. It kind of hangs over the whole story as we go through. We know where our characters are going eventually because of this prophecy, but it's about getting there. We have characters. Tom Maryland is a character in the book, and he tells stories. All the stories have names. The songs have names. It feels like a world that is lived in. It feels worn. And because they have these stories or fairy tales or, things that we would have in our own world, of course, these are different, but it feels so familiar that you can kind of place yourself right in this world. And I will say, I didn't say this in the beginning, I'm not going to do any major spoilers. There'll be some borderline spoilers possibly, but I won't ruin anything. But this world feels lived in. It feels real. People complain sometimes about the length of the books due to the explanation, to showing us what is there. I don't mind that. I think that makes you understand the characters better, the different people. You encounter a lot of different people, and they're all very different. And Robert Jordan does an amazing job of explaining what these people are like, what they look like, what they wear, what their houses look like, what their castles look like. You can really put yourself there and you can visualize it in your head. And I think that's brilliant. And I also think that these longer buildups with these characters, it helps that payoff in the end. And the books pay off in spades. Each one of these it ends on a final note of sorts, to where I feel like now, once I got to the end of each book, if I didn't read another book, I had an amazing experience and I loved it. I'm glad I read it because there was a certain kind of closure in each book that was just fantastic. I loved the magic in these. It's not super explained in the sense of like a give and take of magic of sorts, but we know there's a source that is drawn from. I guess if you're a Star Wars fan, you could liken it to the Force a little bit. But what's cool is it's tainted for men. It drives men mad. Women can channel it. They can be taught to channel it, but if they channel too much, they can burn. So there's lots of really cool things about this magic source. And the Aes Sedai, the women who wield this power, they are not good people necessarily. I think they have the right intentions, but they will use people. There are bad factions. There are questionable characters. And I think that's another reason why it makes this book so interesting is you have what you would consider the good group, the powerful group in the story that should be good. And they are, but they aren't. And so I think that really that unreliable narrator kind of fits here a little bit because the Aes Sedai, as it says, they cannot lie, but what they say may mean other things. So it's really interesting in that way. The friendships, I think, is the power of these books. We have the Emmons Field Five, and it really surrounds these characters, and we see most of the story through them, and other people come in to interact with them, and that's where those characters are explained and are well developed as well. But it's really the five characters, obviously the one being the Dragon Reborn, Rand al'Thor, and then he's got his friends Matt and Perrin, and each of them are special in their own way. And what I think is so cool about those characters is throughout the story, they're very young men who grew up together. They're good friends. But as they're thrown into this world and things are thrust upon them, jealousies kind of bubble up over Rand becoming Lord Rand, and he's the special one. They're after him. And I think that makes them very natural characters. They would naturally be that way. But in the end, what's really cool is that they don't give up on each other. They have a true loyalty to each other, and then they come back around by the end of book 2. Not too much of a spoiler, but they are legitimately great friends, and they go through an arc in these first 2 books. It seems very natural, and I like that a lot. Then you have the other 2 characters who would become Aes Sedai eventually. They both have the power to wield the Force, or the Force. Sorry, I grew up on Star Wars, so excuse me for that. But they can wield the power, and they too are very interesting characters. And they each have storylines that they follow, and they develop as they go. There's actually a lot of development, especially in Nynaeve, the older character, who is the wisdom of the village. And it's really interesting to follow these characters through their arcs in only 2 books. There are 12 more books to go, so I can't imagine what kind of development these characters are going to go through. But I'm excited to find out. I cannot wait to get started on book 3. And so those people out there who are wondering, again, should I read this? Of course you should. It is so good. If you read one and you don't like it, you don't go on. If you like it, you continue. And I'm not at all concerned about the so-called slog, because if it is any indication, when we slow down and we develop and we build worlds and we build culture, that only makes the payoff that much better. And so if we have a slowdown in the middle, but we develop things and then it really ultimately pays off, I'm going to be 100% on board, and I'm willing to take that journey, because what I read in the first 2 books is absolutely amazing. I love these stories so far, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. And this was a great purchase. I think this was only like $34, and I got, essentially 5 books. I think the second set is 3 books. So I will definitely be checking those out as well. So that's all I have for you today. But seriously, dig into these stories. I know sometimes fans can be off-putting. I'm a Rush fan, and we are so obnoxious sometimes other people don't like it. And I think that happens with people who like The Wheel of Time, is that they talk about it so much and they're so obsessed with it that it can turn people off a little bit. But I would say put it aside, jump in, These stories are fantastic. These characters are amazing. And I think if you like reading, you like really developed long stories, I think you're going to like this one a lot. So check it out. And don't forget, this is actually a music channel. So we'll be back on Sunday, every Sunday, to review an album and to do a challenge. So please join us there. And until then, I will see you back with some music next time. And then I will be back after Volume 3 to check in and see if I'm still loving it the way that I did. Hope you'll come back then. Bye now.